The problems facing New Zealand's primary sector have been mounting at a rapid pace. So I think it's time for open hearts and open minds. Now, my haere mai, and welcome to Sarah's sizzling hot country as we count down to our second last episode for 2020 with a spicy red 32-degree heat here in Taitap today. It's a jump in the dam, creek, river, lake kind of day, right? A day where beer couldn't taste any better. We are trying to work out how to package some of this glorious weather for our Northern Hemisphere friends who listen and watch with Sarah's country in their morning, and are heading, sadly, in parts of the world back into lockdown over a cold Christmas ahead. My cousin, my auntie, was telling me in Toronto, has been forced to take 3 weeks holiday from his work, despite having to work from home for the last 6 months in lockdown. He said, well, at least his work was keeping him going. So we're sending some absolute summer aroha love to you all as we are enjoying and suffering, I must say, this type of temperature. But it is summer, isn't it? Kia ora, and thank you so much for being with us as we begin to round out the year for Sarah's Country. I'm your host, Sarah Perriam, and we have another show for you tonight of Farmers Weekly's Land Champions, as celebrated in their last paper of the year. And of course, you can check out at farmersweekly.co.nz. As we stream this Tuesday's show live from Taitapu, the Global HQ team in charge of the likes of Farmers Weekly, they're enjoying a few cold beers tonight and a good Kiwi barbecue at the Williamsons in Fielding. So good on you, good lot. Joel, we went back out to the Rollinsons. You may have caught the Rollinsons, Ted and Sue, on yesterday's show to do some more filming today. And, Joel looked like he was in need of a good cold Corona. Joe, it must not be too far off the heat that you get in Ireland, though, was it?
Oh, yeah, it's just always sitting around 32. We're always out sitting in the sun. It's a wonderful
baking your
time.
white skin.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think the hottest it's ever got back home was 28, maybe. It was horrendous.
And you wouldn't have heard the last of it from the complaining Brits, that would be for sure, because Irish people don't complain about things.
Never.
Especially when it means, going and drinking more cold beer. Yeah. Hey, I'd love to know in the comments below any outstanding temperatures from around New Zealand today and whereabouts in the comments below if you're watching with us live on Facebook or on YouTube. Also, Minister of Health Chris Hipkins has suggested that a potential COVID lockdown protocol over summer here in New Zealand, should they have to, they may have to look at locking down campers and camping grounds. And it got me thinking, I'm quite excited about where I'm going in Golden Bay over summer. I'd be pretty happy to be locked down there. I'm not going to lie. I will come back and broadcast the show, but from the beach in Golden Bay. How bad would that be? So if you had to get locked down over summer, where would it be? And of course, it's kind of like that Treasure Island question, isn't it? What would you make sure you had with you, especially if you're going to see out the lockdown that we had? Sadly, for those watching in the Northern Hemisphere, ours was only around 7 weeks. But so what are some of those key things that you found? And if you're at, say, the beach or your batch and you're at the lakes or the place that you think there would be a lovely place to be locked down for 7 weeks, what would you make sure you had with you? I have just bought a Kindle this year and I absolutely swear by it. When one book's not good enough, you can just go and get another one or have a few on the go. And I like how it says the percentage that you're reading through it at. I don't know. I just love my Kindle. That will be definitely one thing. And of course, cold beer, definitely. On the topic of beer, what's your brew? I want to know about, I'll be putting these questions to our guests live tonight because, everyone's got a favourite go-to beer. I'm not much of a beer drinker myself, but I do like a good Sol or Corona or some of those light lagers. Joel, you've sort of had a bit of trouble drinking beer. You're a bit of a whiskey man though. I mean, we were on the road last week and that man knocks back whiskies like he does beer. But have you got some favourites even?
Do you mean beer?
Yeah, because you can't really drink beer.
No, so I'm allergic to beer.
This is what you've decided.
I wish I wasn't, but no. It turns out I'm allergic to beer, which has been no fun at all. But yeah, I mean, I always enjoyed whiskey, so whiskey's the way to go. I like a good Scotch, which I know Irish whiskey's fine. I like Irish whiskey, but Scotch is better. So.
Oh, so that Irish whiskey I gave you for Christmas.
Oh no. It's lovely. I had a wee bit.
Oh, you did? Okay. So if it's not beer that you like, what is your tipple that you enjoy over summer? And of course, as I said, I'll be putting those questions, and I want to know, let me know where you're watching, of course, as well. And if you're watching live, thank you. I really appreciate that. We have a majority of people that watch this on demand on podcast, and the tens of thousands listening wherever they are the next day, because they're doing horrible things like jet boating. And surfing at 7:00 on a summer's evening. But if you're watching live, I much, much appreciate it. On the show tonight, celebrating our land champions and the matters that you should know about in farming, food and fashion in Aotearoa, New Zealand, here on Sarah's Country. This was a story that was sent through to me by a listener and viewer, Chris Orange, out of South Canterbury. He was ropeable about this particular proposal from Timaru District Council, and I was too when I went on to read it. They want to, listen to this, extend the setbacks for livestock grazing from the road in rural areas. After 7:20, Jason Grant, South Canterbury President for Federated Farmers, will share his frustrations around what seems like a ludicrous new rule. Then at 7:30, Marlborough shearer and supreme winner of this year's Rural Woman Business, NZI Rural Woman in Business Award, Sarah Higgins. She's going to share how her business strives to break through the status quo in the shearing industry. I'm much looking forward to hearing that. As well as to close the show, Dennis O'Callaghan explains how his Northland-based farm produces more than twice the provincial average for any form of beef production. I've been looking forward to this story from Hugh Stringleman for some time. So, of course, about 7:45, Dennis will be with us. But firstly, this is excellent story and front page of this week's Farmers Weekly. I was in a body shop and Anita Roderick, who I admire as an inspirational icon and businesswoman for me, she founded the body shop. She said, if you don't think you're important, imagine being a mosquito. Our guest coming up very shortly took one graft of a plant and it turned into, let me get this exactly correct, 75 million trees of kiwi fruit. How can we not celebrate Russell Lowe, Puke Plant breeder, as he retires after 30 plus years rebuilding the kiwi fruit industry after PSA. He will join us very shortly here on Sarah's Country to celebrate his incredible career. This is Sarah's Country.
Growing a better world takes courage. It takes foresight and vision. It's about dreaming big, then being brave enough to follow that dream through. To create a world where food is plentiful, soils are healthy, and rivers run crystal clear. A world where we grow more with less, where livestock is tended to with care. Energy is friend, not foe, and waste is a valuable resource. This is the world you're already shaping through imagination, innovation, and determination. So as small steps become huge leaps, you move boldly forward. Rabobank is there beside you to help grow a better world together.
So if you've just joined us and you're watching along with us live, I'd love to hear your thoughts on a couple of things. Where would you be locked down? If we had to go into lockdown over summer on your favourite holiday place? As I mentioned, I would not mind at all being locked down in Golden Bay. And of course, Michael backs me up there saying Liger Bay. Oh, the beach at Liger Bay is absolutely incredible, isn't it, Michael? And it's great to see that we seem to have, based in Ohio, Tim watching. Kia ora, Tim. Thank you so much for tuning into Sarah's Country Live. I know it will probably be in the early hours of your morning over there whilst you're watching live, so I really appreciate that. And of course, I'd love to know what I could do with the damn good cold beer right now. We've been out filming. It was about 33 degrees today. Not a lie. Thank God for some breeze and mid-Canterbury breeze. But of course, it's not long to go and we have to be here for you, tuning in Monday to Wednesday live from 7 p.m. And I'm super excited to kick off the second last show of the year with the front page cover boy. He's not going to like me saying that. This is, of course, on this week's Farmers Weekly, after devoting 30 plus years to the plant breeding industry and recently being named New Zealand's most successful plant breeder with a Lifetime Achievement Award. You would have remembered that pesky disease, PSA, back in 2010. If it wasn't for our next guest, we wouldn't be celebrating the kiwi fruit industry where it is today because of a kiwi fruit genomic sequencing from Plant and Food Research in Puke along with his team. As I said, recently recognised for his outstanding research in the Science New Zealand 2020 National Awards held in Parliament in Wellington a few weeks ago. Russell Lowe joins us now here on Sarah's Country. Russell, that was a nice picture on the front page of Farmers Weekly. You might have to get that one framed. What a wonderful way to end, we'll put to bed this chapter as you move on to your next.
That's right. I'm not entirely disconnected from my mates at Plant and Food. I still look in there now and again.
Yes, keeping a close eye on the work that you have done over such a long period of time. Let's take us back to what is described as a far cry from a wooden bungalow, a maize crop, and a pile of orchard posts in the 70s with your wife.
Yes, well, I was appointed officer in charge of the new Te Puke research station that the government had just bought the land in 1971, number 1 road. And I transferred up from the research station in Nelson and arrived up in Te Puke. When they mentioned Te Puke, I had to have a look on the map and thought, where's Te Puke? But anyway, we started with virtually a blank canvas and got cracking to develop this new research station in Te Puke.
And that came after you had a interest in horticulture and that you'd been involved in horticulture more in the Tasman region prior to that?
Yes, I was at the Appleby Research Station, just halfway between Richmond and Motueka on the coast there, working on apples.
But your life has been dedicated in somewhat to the amazing, what is now known as gold kiwi fruit, and gold by price as well as, of course, the colour as well. Can you talk us through what it was like during that devastating time of known as PSA and how the Plant and Food team begun to start to repair the industry?
Well, as you know, people know the original Zespri Gold kiwi fruit was going very well. It was a new addition to the marketing stream alongside green and was doing very well in the market, and there was a lot of area planted. And then along came PSA, and within about a year, virtually the entire crop was wiped out with this disease. And growers just didn't have any income. But it was we were fortunate that the kiwifruit breeding is a continuous process, and back in '95, I'd started working on particular strains of kiwifruit, what we call the tetraploid strain. They've got more double the chromosomes than the original gold. And I felt it had a lot of potential to improve fruit size, storage life, and production. But the original material we started with had a terrible sour taste. So it took several generations to improve this. But by about 2008, we had a number of selections in semi-commercial production. That included the one we call Gold 3, or it's marketed as Sun Gold. And so we already had quite an area under evaluation. It was looking really good. And if we hadn't had PSA, it probably would have taken quite a few years for growers to change over, because it's quite an expense to cut off and regraft. However, PSA came along, destroyed our original gold, but we discovered that, our Gold 3 was surviving quite well with minimal management. And so there was a huge push to get all that plant material grafted up on growers' properties to replace the original material. And because they were grafting onto large established plants, the production came back very quickly. Within 2 years, we were getting some gold production, and it's just ramped up every year from there.
Do you think the kiwi fruit industry has been particularly privileged by government support in terms of research development? You talk about it here when you spoke with Richard Rennie in this Farmers Weekly article about the dollar for dollar investment back in the mid-'80s, so in continuing right through. Would you have been able to do your work without that type of support, or am I wrong?
No, you're right. We had government funding for what we call basic plant research, and then once Zespri was putting an equal amount of research into kiwifruit, and particularly kiwifruit breeding. So between with the government money supporting basic research and Zespri supporting the commercial development, we were able to move along quite nicely.
What are some of those things that are hitting the kiwi fruit industry where certain types of practices that are happening in the orchards may need to change, and what's the industry looking to do about it?
What do you mean about that?
I'm just thinking, I'm just reading here in terms of things like the controversial spray, high cane and things like that, and the technologies that will be born from these types of challenges.
Yes, the high cane use is a potential problem longer term, because in areas where we get low winter chilling, growers need to use high cane to promote bud burst and get a decent crop. With our Sun Gold is fairly tolerant to low winter chilling hours, but it'll be a struggle to get a good commercial crop the further north you go. And with the expanding production, that's the sort of thing. And we're all very aware of the issues around climate change. As it gets warmer, it's going to reduce winter chilling, and this is going to cause a problem. But with our breeding work, we're continuing on looking to develop new strains of kiwifruit that are less, that need less winter chilling. And we've got quite a bit of germplasm. And with our Kirikiri research station up in the far north, we're able to test material in a low winter chill environment, and that'll be quite a benefit for the future to get this material that won't need high cane to develop a good crop.
That's very exciting. How much is our regulations here in New Zealand around gene editing affecting plant breeders' ability to progress in terms of
Well, I'm a traditional breeder, and I haven't had a lot to do with the gene editing people. And as you know, currently that material is not accepted into the market in most countries, and it isn't supported by the commercial growing areas. So that there's a lot of interesting research going on, but it's at the moment is having no impact on our commercial breeding program. We are focused on commercial breeding using conventional techniques.
And everyone's getting extremely excited about the red kiwi fruit. Are you as well, Russell?
Yeah, it was fantastic to eventually get a red kiwi fruit in commercial production. We've been working at it for quite a long time, and then we got knocked back with PSA. We're almost there at that stage, 2010. And then we had to turn around and start breeding with the survivors of the epidemic. And we've eventually got through to having a release this year. So I'm really excited, and I think it's a brilliant fruit myself. Got great potential in the market, especially in Asia, where they just love red.
Yes, and I have a mother who would love to get her hands on just one cane for her garden in the Marlborough Sounds, Russell. I know she will be wanting me to ask you this. So I'm sure it's under lock and key, isn't it?
It is, yes. It's only available to commercial growers under license.
Yes. There you go, mother. I did ask. Hey, now, Russell, I've got to let you go because I know what the temperature like is inside an office right now in New Zealand. But before you go, would you share with us, what do you have a favourite tipple in terms of a beer, nice cold beer brand when you turn to, or are you usually something else on a summer's day?
I quite like a cool Pinot Gris, actually.
Oh, yes.
I think it's rather nice.
Nice and crisp.
Fruity wine, and not so much, what is it, cat's pee that you get in the Sauvignon Blanc. I don't fancy that at all.
I totally agree with you. You need to eat half a block of quickies each glass.
Yeah, so stick with the Pinot Gris.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations on a wonderful career, Russell Lowe, and everything you've contributed to the New Zealand primary sector, and of course celebrating 30 years, but also being recognised with the Lifetime Achievement Award at the recent Science National Awards held in Parliament a few weeks ago. And you can you can read Russell's full story with thanks to Richard Rennie in this week's and last for the year Farmers Weekly. It's called A Life Work of Plant Breeding. Absolutely fabulous. Now, we are talking about one of the places around New Zealand should we go into lockdown, which is not going to happen, by the way. The thing is, you say it, then it doesn't happen. That's my theory. Where would you like to be in lockdown? I mean, in a camping ground pissing with rain, which is likely in New Zealand, is probably not that appealing. However, some of our comments coming in here. Oh, you're straight all on about the drink, you lot. John, a nice aged Bordeaux blend, preferably Hawke's Bay. Craggy Range will not let you down. I know what I can order you next time you're down, John. Wendy, can't beat a nice rosé wine in a hot evening. Absolutely. Wendy, I've actually got into putting a couple of ice cubes in my rosé. I don't normally like to water alcohol down, but it's refreshing. I can tell you that much. And there's some other comments here about loving the beach and being able to kayak around the coast, and new areas for kiwi fruit with climate change further south, like the Marlborough Sounds, maybe. After the break, does it seem fair that the Timaru District Council is extending the setbacks for livestock to be grazed in rural areas? It seems ludicrous. Well, one of our viewers has sent this article in to me to follow up, and as I do, Jason Grant, the South Canterbury president of Federated Farmers, will join us to talk about this controversial new ruling. This is Sarah's Country.
Growing a better world takes courage. It takes foresight and vision. It's about dreaming big, then being brave enough to follow that dream through. To create a world where food is plentiful, soils are healthy, and rivers run crystal clear. A world where we grow more with less, where livestock is tended to with care. Energy is friend, not foe, and waste is a valuable resource. This is the world you're already shaping through imagination, innovation, and determination. So as small steps become huge leaps, you move boldly forward. And Rabobank is there beside you to help grow a better world together.
Welcome to all of our new live viewers here on Sarah's Country, our second to last show of 2020. A year it has been. And thank you so much to our wonderful viewers who are commenting along with us. Stephen Jack says, congratulations, Russell. The kiwi fruit industry are very lucky to have you. Very sweet. I absolutely love when people drop in and out of the show sporadically when they see a guest on that they would love to hear from. And that's what the thing is when we turn up the same time, Monday to Wednesday, every single week, religiously to bring you all of the matters that matter most. And this is in alliance with the wonderful team at Farmers Weekly, who will be back with their paper at the start of January, but have headed off on holiday as of today. They're at their Christmas party right now, having a nice cold beer, while myself and Joel are melting like a blimmin' Eskimo pie in the studio right now. Thank you so much to our viewers who get in touch about stories that we should cover here on Sarah's Country. And the recent one was sent in to me via Facebook from Chris Orange. And he was outraged about a recent proposal by the Timaru District Council seeking to increase the size of the setbacks from the roads, boundaries and neighbouring houses for dairy sheds, stockyards and intensively farmed animals in its draft district plan. The draft, as it said, has just finished its first public consultation. And as you can imagine, many farmers are a bit frustrated. I'm sure at that consultation was our next guest, Jason Grant, South Canterbury President for Federated Farmers. Jason, you've had a recent meeting with the council. Have you told them that they're bonkers? Are they listening?
Oh, not quite. No, thanks for having me on tonight too, Sarah. That's really good. No, there's definitely a few issues around this draft plan coming out. I think that it is truly a draft plan, so these rules aren't set in stone. There were some real major concerns around the setbacks. So one of the rules especially was calling for setbacks of 100 metres from boundaries and about 400 metres from residential houses for intensively farmed stock. Now, intensively farmed stock, into the clarification, is anything that's been break fenced or eating irrigated pasture. So that would mean any animals, any dairy farms or any animals in that class would have to be 100 metres back from the boundary. So straight away there was a real error in that rule, and we have had assurances that rule will definitely be thrown out. It was just a bit of a mistake. Some of the other setbacks really caused a bit of a concern, and I think it wasn't really clear in the draft plan that a lot of the stuff was only going forward, so it wasn't retrospective. So anyone's existing ponds or existing ponds or effluent ponds or dairy sheds wouldn't come under this new rule. So that wasn't that clear in the first place, and I think that's what got the back up a lot of farmers. We've had since this came out, Federated Farmers had a meeting, and we've consulted with had a meeting with the Timaru District Council planners. And we've had some pretty good dialogue, and we've been given pretty good assurances that some of the really curly rules in this draft plan, we should see some easement on it. So we should be okay.
It's an interesting one, though, isn't it? Because I'm sitting there thinking about the extremely wonderful, fertile soil around the towns of the likes of Timaru and Oamaru. And, I mean, you can have that same argument about the expansion of rural, of urban sprawl onto some of these wonderful soils as well. Is it majority rules here in terms of who wants to live next to what?
Well, I think if you put a house and there's something that is already a pond or a dairy shed existing, that's not going to be that's going to be your problem. So I know I can understand that. It is something that we're working through, and I know there's some real concerns there. But I think we'll end up with something. I mean, if anything that's come out of this is that there's been a lot of publicity, so we're going to end up with some rules that are very well consulted. We have been given assurances that our feedback will be listened to. There's one thing that really came out of this as well, that it just showed how very on edge our rural communities are around new rules. And it sort of leads back to last year when we had the consultation period for the essential freshwater came out. And we were told back then that we were going to be listened to and put in your feedback and put in your submissions. And I think we were told we'd end up with rules that would drop out the bottom that were really good. And I think everyone realises we didn't quite end up get what we were promised. Well, end up with what we were promised. So that is where the rural community's right on edge, and I think we're dealing with a different beast here. The scenario is different to what we had with the essential freshwater package, but there are some major concerns out there for the well-being of rural families. I mean, there's a lot of stress out there, and it doesn't take very much to set people off, and this has been a really prime example of that.
We've just had a point come in here from a viewer. The fire risk alone makes this sound ridiculous because, I mean, what's the profitability of non-intensive in some of those certain areas for other types of less intensive land uses in that type of country?
Yeah, no, it was. I think it was definitely a mistake, that one. It is completely impractical. And I remember when I first heard the rule, I just thought to myself, well, that must just be a mistake, and I think we were pretty right. And
you spat your coffee out, Jason.
Sorry?
You spat your coffee out.
Yeah, well, it was. Yeah, it was. It was just, it just didn't make sense. So I just thought to myself, I mean, it's always the thing. Rules that are completely ridiculous and don't make sense don't seem to worry me as much as ones that are tight and you can just do, because those are the ones that often cause the problems.
And just in terms of the makeup of the Timaru District Council and rural governance and representation in general, like yourself, being the president for South Canterbury Federated Farmers, is it a problem there whereby there's not enough rural representation within a district council to understand that these rules are ridiculous before going to media about them?
I don't think there's too many problems. We've actually got a pretty good relationship with the Timaru District Council. Just today I actually went and presented to one of their council meetings around what Federated Farmers does. So we have got a good dialogue there. I just think that this was just brought out and it really was a draft plan. It's not even the proposed plan. We've still got yet to go to that. So after this consultation and I'm saying in the consultation period and for feedback has been extended till the 31st of December to give an extra month to get people be able to put their feedback in. And then we've got roughly 6 months before we get into the proposed plan, which is going to be drawn up, and there'll be formal submissions at that period. So we have got a fair bit of time to iron this out and get some rules that we can all work with. And it really, that is the important part. I mean, it's really highlighted in some of the things that we're dealing with in farming at the moment. That if you develop rules in isolation of people that the rules are ultimately going to affect, you end up with rules that don't work and you end up with silly rules, basically. So you have to have everyone involved, thrash them out. And in this case, that probably should have happened. They should have been consulted on before they were let public, and it would have caused a lot less angst around the community. But, I mean, it's happened, and we are where we are now. But I think in the future, we probably won't see anything come like this come out of the Timaru District Council. Hopefully not for a while anyway. Yeah,
that's good. Jason Grant's got anything to do with it. That's absolutely fabulous. Before I let you go, Jason, I haven't asked this of Alaski, so I'll mix it up a little bit. If they say, for instance, we were to go into lockdown, and touch wood, that we won't. As Chris Hipkins said, it'll be wherever you're based at a summer holiday location. Where would your ideal place to go? Oh, sorry, I've got to stay here now and not be too worried about it.
I would probably be at home, actually.
Because you get a lot done.
Home on the farm. Well, I don't quite live on the farm at the moment, but it wouldn't be too far from the farm.
Yeah.
And I think there'd be plenty to do. I don't think I'm going to be stuck in a campground. No, you're dead wrong.
Yeah, absolutely not. No, thank you so. Thank you so.
At home near a lake, yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, near a lake, absolutely. Thank you so much, South Canterbury Federated Farmers President Jason Grant, joining us there. Now, Joel, it just got me thinking. You recently were down in Oamaru doing some outside filming for a documentary company on the Pacifica community. It's really interesting what you were doing there, Joel. Joel, have you got your camera and your mic there live? Because I just want you to mention that about how the Oamaru, the Waitaki District Council, went about the consultation with the Pacifica community, and I think it's something we should celebrate.
This was so this was basically, they were talking about pigs. Yeah, it was about wildlife in the or not wildlife, keeping stock in the back garden, basically, for, like, I don't know, people on the islands would generally have a pig or so in the back, and then whenever there was a celebration or some sort, they'd kill it and eat it, and they were having a chat in council about whether that should be allowed or whether you should be able to keep a pig or whatever in the back garden. And one of them turned around at one point and was like, so we don't have anyone on council that would be affected by this, and this won't affect anyone that we represent. And then there was something of a concerted effort anyway, I think, from certain parts of the community to bring people from those kind of communities, so like the Pacifica community and that, onto the council, just so they had a voice for whenever issues like this were being discussed. Now they've got a Pacifica councillor, Hannah.
That's fantastic.
Whose surname I've forgotten, but yeah, no, it was great. It was really cool to see.
And I think the way that you explained it to me, Joel, hang on a minute, these don't affect us personally or the communities we represent, so let's get somebody who knows about this to be representative of the people it most affects. Logical, you'd think. And Joel actually also passed on to me that Oamaru, would you believe it, is the biggest Pacifica community in New Zealand per capita. Would you know that? Absolutely incredible. Things I find out about this beautiful place, Aotearoa, New Zealand. Every single day we get to celebrate, and I can't wait to celebrate with our next guest who took home the 2020 Rural Woman Business Award, a Supreme Award. She has been in the professional sport of shearing, and she has got a passion for sheep like no other. After the break, we are joined by another land champion from this week's Farmers Weekly, Sarah Higgins. This is Sarah's Country.
Really pleased we got into this. Thanks for your help, Dave.
It's a good idea, honey. Do you reckon it'll come out? Cover it and tell compound to leave it 10 minutes. You'll be fine. Good call, Dave.
Good call on getting those security cameras, Dave.
You caught a new one yet?
Yeah, kind of.
When you've got decisions to make, we'll be there to help you make the right call.
I'd go for those ones, Bob. Yeah, good call.
Did you choose these?
Oh, you know.
For great advice and insurance, talk to FMG.
Every morning, Kiwi farmers wake up to produce higher quality food. Yet, every night, some Kiwi families are going to sleep hungry. Meet the Need is a charity founded by farmers, and it's here to change all that. We're about New Zealand farmers feeding New Zealand families by donating a small part of what we grow when we can. You can help us make sure no one in New Zealand goes to sleep hungry again. Visit meettheneed.org and follow us on social.
We're a large deer farm and very proud deer farmer at that. I grew up here as a little boy. It is just an amazing lifestyle. I could never live in a city ever again. Just the big open spaces and just the peacefulness of it all. I think deer are very majestic, very intelligent animal. Having deer that are under pressure or anything like that or overstocked, you know, they really don't perform as well. You should really be spreading them out on beautiful pastures, keeping them happy. A happy deer is a good deer. And good feed, you know, good grass. We renew our pastures all the time in the paddocks, so we're always getting the best quality grass. Well, I guess in the wild, they don't have the luxury of the grass that we put in front of them here as a farmed animal. I believe we've got some of the best English type deer in the country, if not the world. And to associate our brand with Silver Fern Farms brand works for us. Without the likes of Silver Fern Farms, then there's no point doing this. So they're very, very important for us. I'm Mark Tapley, very proud suppliers of venison to Silver Fern Farms.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on our second to last episode of Sarah's Country for 2020 as we sail off into the sunset of a year that we can close the door on. For some, it's been horrible. For others, it's been an opportunity that they have taken from the crisis and turned it into greatness. So wherever you are on the spectrum of that, it is always nice to reflect on a year regardless of the outcome and, of course, how the next year ahead can bring. But for many in the farming sector, life carries on over the summer period and there is no real defined break. That's, of course, the end of the financial year in the cold in winter. And so therefore, for those who are working flat stack right at the moment, please take care, and if you can, just take a break for half a day, go boating. I know it sounds like a blimmin' dream, and I'm dreaming for that possibly to happen when you've got so much going on. But, you do only live once. I do have to say that because sometimes someone needs to remind you. And one person that is making the most of her life and living it full is our next land champion in this week's Farmers Weekly. She has a Marlborough-based shearing business seeking to break all the stereotypes and how a shearing crew might look and behave, and recently awarded a Supreme Award in the New Zealand Rural Woman in Business 2020, thanks to NZI. Her commitment and passion to shearing came through into the judges, and when you read her story, you will be amazed that she's achieved all this at just now 28. Sarah Higgins joins us now. Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time to come on Sarah's Country tonight. The floor is all yours because, what an incredible year that ending experience it has been to be acknowledged for something that you probably think you just do day to day because you're passionate and love it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You've hit the money on the head there.
So let's go back. You went to Lincoln University, very close to where we are now, studying agriculture and majoring in marketing. Would you ever imagined back then that you would be heading up a shearing contracting business?
Absolutely not, no.
And so life has taken so many changes for you. What was that time when you were, working in the sheds and thought, hang on a minute, I might have a go at this shearing thing?
Yeah, well, it just started with an interest in learning how to shear, really, just so that I could say that I could do it.
And how does it lead from picking up a handpiece to actually going to creating your own shearing gang?
I guess it comes from the people around me a little bit, like they give you an idea, give you a bit of a push, and you're like, oh, well, this is an opportunity, and yeah, it interests me, so let's do it.
So let's talk about the journey into setting up that. I mean, when you left school, you were working as a wool handler in the shed. But I mean, honestly, what made you go into 5 years now? You have a mixed gender team of 8 known as Higgins shearing, and full-time on the job. I mean, that is such an incredible journey. What actually was that pathway to going, or did it just miraculously happen?
Yeah, well, in a way, it's like, you get presented with these opportunities in life, and it does sort of come down. I don't want to make out like there's a big weight on those decisions, but they do really determine where you can end up. And I guess this is just a result of decisions I've made in the last 7 years, sort of thing, since leaving university, probably longer than that actually. But yeah, and I've just followed what I've enjoyed doing, really. And I've been able to do that.
It's interesting you do say about wanting to change the status quo of shearing crews. I shouldn't use the word gang. That could have been one of the sort of misconceptions around the shearing crew environment and culture. But it is something that we should probably talk about because it doesn't have the best rep, does it?
No, it certainly doesn't. It doesn't at all. And when I started, I'd heard, I'd never worked in really, really big runs. I'd worked in Canterbury and overseas and that, and I'd always been lucky to work with really good people, but I'd heard a lot of horror stories and how things can be, sort of thing. So I guess I always set out to say, well, I don't want to be like that, sort of thing. So it's just growing from there.
Yeah, and so how easy is it to attract staff and keep that culture clean and pure as it can be?
It hasn't been too hard. Pretty quickly, though, the people that are different to you, they don't really feel like they fit in either anyway, so we end up in separate ways quite naturally, I feel, generally. And just like most things in this world, I think you sort of attract what you put out, or like with like, sort of thing, So we tend to attract people that naturally fit into our culture anyway.
Yeah, I know. Joel's like for like, aren't you, Joel? Just joking. And I suppose it's been a really challenging time with COVID, and of course the Shearing Contractors Association with Mark Barracliff I've spoken to multiple times on Serious Country about these borders closures dramatically affecting the ability to get labour. How's it been for you?
I'm lucky. I've built up quite a good local crew here now, and I don't really need people from away or out of the region as such. So that hasn't affected me a lot at all, the border closures. But COVID itself was a challenge, and we just worked through it as a team. And to be honest, it hasn't had a major effect on our business, which is nice.
Really positive to come out the other side. Hey, we're heading into sort of AMP show season, and one of my favourite parts is to go along to speed shears. You naturally encouraging your crew to step up and join the sport shearing and encouraging the growth of that sport?
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoy it, and that's absolutely, that's one of my passions about shearing, is getting into the competition side of things. But that's where a lot of my opportunities came from too, like how I hooked up with the people who got me the job overseas when I travelled, and you meet more people similar to you as well at the competition, and you just learn so much about growing your capability as a shearer. Like if I hadn't done the competitions, I don't believe I would have done a world record.
Yeah. Yeah. Just sort of, sorry for my ignorance, that's not pointed out in this article. Are you predominantly merino, strong wool?
No, we're probably more strong wool at the moment, but the merino side of things is growing, and with the landscape changing in Marlborough, a lot of crossbred land is moving to viticulture.
Yeah.
So,
The reason I wanted to ask you that is I would really love your thoughts on the commentary I'm hearing from, those wanting to transform the strong wool industry, that we need to up our game in terms of shed preparation. What's your thoughts?
I think before we can do that, there has to be a market for the wool, and farmers have to be getting some money for it, because otherwise why there's no motivation there for them to put top effort into preparing their wool and to spend more money on it.
That's
the returns the way they are at the moment.
It's a real chicken and egg situation, isn't it, Sarah?
It is. Yeah.
Oh, hey, congratulations on behalf of our viewers and listeners here at Shearers Country for taking home the NZI Rural Business Supreme Award for 2020. Absolutely fabulous. The wonderful congratulations to all of the finalists in that Business Awards. It's extremely inspirational looking and reading into the journeys and stories that feature there. Now, lastly on the show, we are going to head from Marlborough to Northland, I've been really looking forward to talking to Dennis O'Callaghan from the far north about the system that they have in place to achieve double the productivity from the same level of land. I have to point out a couple of key exciting things to round out the year. We have had a record milk production here in New Zealand, and we've had an average 130% lamb crop on a very, very challenging year with drought and, of course, COVID. So can I just have a big, massive round of applause to our dairy farmers and our sheep farmers in those incredible results. That's what it takes to be the most efficient producers of food in this world, is about more productivity from less land. And we have got a treat for you up next to close, as I said, the second last edition of the year, going to Northland with Dennis O'Callaghan very shortly.
This is Shearers Country.
The recipe for perfect beef and lamb. Take one small fresh country. Make sure it's nice and remote. Now, keep it at the ideal temperature all year round. Next, mix in the farmers. They go perfectly with the nature of this unique place. Add regular sprinkles of rain to really bring out the lush meadow grass. Then let your animals happily graze on this grass, all day, every day. And there you have it, New Zealand, the perfect recipe for beef and lamb. Taste pure nature.
In the last paper of Farmers Weekly this week, they celebrate the land champions. Every single one of our wonderfully experienced journalists has put forward a land champion for us to celebrate their stories, and you can read them in full at farmersweekly.co.nz, as well as, of course, listen to them on the Shearers Country podcast on demand, or, of course, check out the videos of our land champions. What a wonderful way to round out the year and to round out today's show. How is it possible to achieve a profitable and sustainable management system that is extremely productive from the same amount of land? Well, we're joined now by Dennis O'Callaghan, Northland beef farmer, about the methods that he has used along with his wife Rochelle at Timaru Station. Evening, Dennis. It's so wonderful to have you on the show. Could you just set the scene for our listeners and viewers and your location that you are sitting in right now?
We're very lucky. We farm right on the edge of Doubtless Bay. We overlook the bay. We've got 576 hectares effective, and it's just a beautiful place to farm. Yeah.
And so this is Taipa in Northland. So how far up are we?
We are about the same level as Kaitaia, but out on the east coast. So there's still, what people forget, they think Kaitaia is the north, but there's still another hour and a half to go before you get to Cape Reinga. So yeah, there's still a lot of land north of us. So yeah.
And it's absolutely fantastic to have you on the show. I know Hugh Stringleman has been, hungry to have the story within Farmers Weekly for some time. And it is around the intensive beef system known as techno-grazing. And it is intensive. However, in a balanced system within your station, it has been a real winner for you. Could you explain what techno-grazing is to our viewers and listeners?
Basically, it's the infrastructure you put in place to be able to graze bulls, and well, you can graze any class of cattle, but we do bulls in small mobs on a rotation. And the rotation links, you can vary them to whatever you like. We work on 60 days, but the further south of the country you could go right out to 120 days. So it's just a system of being able to manage your animals and manage your pasture, so you can grow the maximum amount of grass of the highest quality to be able to get the maximum growth rates out of your bulls.
So how does this differ from a feedlot, per se?
Well, we feed 100% grass. We used absolutely zero supplements. There's no silage, no hay, no meal. So that's your biggest difference to a feedlot. The second difference is the animals are moved. Instead of bringing the feed to the animals, we move the animals to the feed. And that's where the infrastructure comes in, and your fencing and your water, which is what the techno-grazing system is. So that's the biggest difference is we're using no artificial feed, and we move the animals to the feed rather than the feed to the animals.
And 500 kilos you're achieving per hectare is incredible, which is double the provincial average. Is there anything unique in terms of the makeup of feed or soil type or anything in terms of climatic areas that is achieving that type of growth to put into those animals?
We've actually haven't got very good soils. A lot of Northland has got very poor soils. The reason we are achieving the results we are is, one, we grow more grass because we try and keep our grass in that 50 to 150 mil length to get the maximum amount of growth we can out of our grass. Second thing is we try and keep our grass in a very high stage of ME so that the cattle are eating a very high quality pasture. And the third reason the systems work is I feel that the animals, because they're constantly being fed good quality grass every 2 days, they become more efficient at converting grass into meat.
What about anything relating to genetics coming through? I know you were saying you're doing bull beef there, but when it comes to your fellow farming, friends that are in the techno-grazing, fraternity, so to speak, of farm management systems, are you seeing any focus there on genetics or even age to hit that as well?
We're very lucky because we've got a huge source of beef that we can get out of the dairy industry. And the dairy industry's genetics, that they are breeding cattle to produce milk. And the genetics for producing milk or producing meat are very closely related. So while they're selecting for milk production, they're also subsequently selecting for meat production as well, because you're creating an animal that is more efficient at turning grass into either milk or meat. And so we're very lucky that we can grab those genetics out of that dairy industry and use them in our beef systems. So we are getting high quality genetics out of that system. Yeah.
And that's regardless of what breed has been over them?
Us personally, we just use pure Friesians. But there is a lot of either Hereford Friesian cross or Angus Friesian cross calves out there that you can buy, but we've found that the people that are buying the calves off us, they want a pure Friesian because we don't finish them. We only take them through to a yearling. So we've got to supply a product that market wants.
I want to talk more about, this is an intensive farming system, but you have achieved a Supreme Award in the Balanced Northland Farm Environment Awards for your contribution to soil management and integrated water management. What are some of those things that you are focusing on to improve and look after the environment on your farm?
Our biggest issue on our farm is sediment getting into our waterways. Nitrogen's not so much of a problem, it's the sediment. So during the process of cutting our farm up into little cells or into technos, we've fenced off all our waterways. And so the best thing we can do is stop sediment going into our waterways, which is what's carrying the phosphate into our water, which is what we're not wanting. So by fencing our waterways off, the best thing we've found to stop that sediment getting into the water is a barrier of grass. So but immediately we fence our waterway off, we create a barrier of grass which will slow the water down, and it will drop its sediment before it goes into our drains, which lead into the river, which leads into our beautiful Doubtless Bay up here. Mm. The other thing we do is we always make sure we run our fences across the hills, so that every time a fence crosses a little drain or a creek, we create a sediment trap, because you create long grass under your fence and that slows your water down. So tunnel gullying or tomos is a huge problem on our farm, and by cutting our farm up the way we have and slowing that water down, we have virtually eliminated the tunnel gullying, and we're just doing a bit of refining with planting poplars and willows in those areas to once again create more of a sediment trap, slow that water down so you don't get that volume of fast flowing water which is doing the erosion.
Out of interest, I know there'll be some people asking, what is that type of setback you've got on grass in terms of distance?
This is a contentious issue. We put our fence right next to the drain, and we do not have a riparian strip as such, because we feel that even a 200 to 300 mil strip of grass, long grass, is enough to slow that water down, as long as it's not going 1,000,000 miles an hour because it's run from the top of the hill. Because we're slowing that water down all the way, it's not actually flowing real fast when it hits the bottom of our gullies. And the other thing we do is, because we're maintaining high pasture covers, a lot of the time when you get the likes of what I call sheet erosion, where you get the soil, you get light pugging, and then the whole soil starts moving down the hill, just sediment, not in a landslide. It goes out of the area where the cattle are, hits the next area where you've got higher covers, and it immediately stops and all that soil settles. So, for example, we've got 3 gullies on our farm. When we were farming traditionally 25 years ago, we would have to clean out the drains in each of those gullies about every 3 years. Once we intensified, we're going 12 to 15 years before we have to clean out. So that proves to me we're keeping the sediment back up on the hills, back where we want it, because we don't want to lose our topsoil, obviously. So, yeah, I think, to me it works, and the experts agree too, so yeah.
I was actually on a farm last week, and I was admiring the trough systems, and they weren't techno grazing, but he said that those are the troughs that they use in techno grazing. And one thing I absolutely hate is just the pugging mud mess around a lot of our troughs. That alone has got to be great.
Yeah, there's 2 types of troughs we use. Well, there were 2 types of troughs we used to use. We've basically all gone to a micro trough now, which is a very small trough. It holds about 3 litres of water. Only one animal can drink at a time. So you have to have a sufficient flow rate. Obviously, the water's got to flow into the trough as fast as that one animal can drink. We've found them very, very good. But before that, we used a techno system. It was a 100-litre temporary trough, and we moved the trough with the cattle.
Yeah.
And that worked really well because, as you say, you get a pug mark or, a bare dirt round where the trough was. Next time you come round into that area, you put the trough somewhere else. And so that bit is allowed to recover and grass over. And And so that eliminates that problem, or what you're talking about, the pugging and the bare dirt around a water source. Yeah.
I bet your contractors love it too when you're reseeding as well, being able to move them out.
Yeah, we don't do much of that, sorry.
I'm just thinking, and it's been wonderful chatting to you. I do, there's a lot covering off of as well around your, involvement in rodeo in Northland as well. And of course, you can read the full interview at farmersweekly.co.nz. And of course, in the printed paper, which will be in your rural mailbox, and it will be the last one until about the first week of January. I've just got to get that right because the team came back a bit earlier than we do, just naturally with this news cycle. But that is all we have time for tonight on Sarah's Country. Tomorrow's show is our last show, and I know that Tessa has been working very hard to get some special guests on our last Christmas edition of Sarah's Country. I just want to chat with them about the year that's been, the year ahead, and of course, what we can stay positive about in farming, food and fashion here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, whether you're listening on demand on podcast or, of course, watching us live. I really genuinely appreciate all of your feedback via email. Send me an email, sarah@sarahscountry.com. And in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your wonderful summer evening wherever you are around this beautiful country, and we'll be back again tomorrow night live from 7 o'clock.
This is Sarah's Country.